I don't rattle easily. Numbers don't lie, and in my world, truth hides in spreadsheets and transactions. But lately, the math at the firm wasn't adding up. And neither was Tara. My name's Marcus. I'm 41, a forensic accountant based in Richmond, Virginia. I've been married to Tara for 9 years. Long enough to know when something's off. And something was definitely off. The financial anomalies at work were getting worse. Vendor invoices duplicated, charitable donations rerouted, petty cash accounts draining faster than they should. I started digging quietly, pulling flagged records during off hours, piecing together what looked like a slow leak through a nonprofit shell. Nothing I could prove yet, but enough to keep me up at night. And Tara? She was growing more distant by the week. At first, it was small stuff. She started staying late more often, claiming she had gala planning or donor dinners. It made sense. She ran a nonprofit. But then she stopped giving me the details she used to love sharing. Tara used to light up talking about her events, telling me about the sponsors she landed or the turnout for a silent auction. Now I'd get a half shrug into tired. It went fine. Her phone, once left on the charger in the kitchen every night, became her shadow, always in her pocket or face down beside her. Password protected. One night, I asked her casually about a fundraising dinner. She was brushing her hair, already in her robe, and she just mumbled, "It was good, Marcus. I'm really tired." That was her new answer for everything. Then came the perfume. It was subtle, but different. Not her usual scent. Something floral and sharp that clung to her jacket when she came home one Thursday after 11 p.m. I asked her if she had switched perfumes, and she didn't even look up from her phone. "Not now, Marcus. Not now." That was the moment it clicked. The same tone clients used when they knew they were being audited but hoped I wouldn't notice. The fatigue wasn't real. It was rehearsed, efficient, practiced. That night, I stared at the ceiling for hours. Not because I didn't know what was happening, but because I did. I'd spent years tracing misdirection and shell games for a living. Now the same patterns were showing up in my own home. Tara thought she was being careful, but she was sloppy in the way guilty people always are, too controlled, too smooth. Like a line item marked miscellaneous that repeats just a little too often. I'd already started the audit at work. It was time to do one at home, too. The thing about audits, real audits, is they're never loud. You don't storm in with accusations. You watch. You document. You verify. Tara had a tablet she barely used. It sat on the kitchen counter most days, plugged in, neglected. That's where I started. She was out that evening, another fundraising dinner, though she didn't say where or with whom. Just slipped on heels I hadn't seen in months and kissed my cheek like she was on autopilot. Once she was gone, I walked straight to the tablet. Hands steady. I wasn't shaking, wasn't hesitating. I justified it already in my head. This wasn't about jealousy. This was forensic work. The same way I looked through client files. Not to punish, but to uncover the truth. It took me 20 minutes to install the mirrored email client. 10 more for the tracking software. Nothing invasive, just location pings and synced texts. Nothing she'd notice. And if she did, well, maybe I wanted her to. By the time she texted me at 9:42 p.m., dinner running late, don't wait up, I already had access to her messages. It wasn't hard to find. There was a thread with someone named Jace. No last name. No saved contact photo. Just Jace. At first, I thought it was professional. His name showed up months ago, maybe a donor or event sponsor. But these weren't donor messages. Not unless donors sent heart emojis and flirty dinner reservations. Jace, bring the green dress again? You know what it does to me. Tara, only if you bring that Bordeaux you promised. Same key still works. Jace, of course. Just pick up the wine. You've got the spare key. I stared at the screen for a long time. I should have felt fury. Betrayal. The kind of rage that makes people punch walls and scream into the night. But all I felt was clarity. I scrolled. More messages. More innuendo. Mentions of late-night visits, inside jokes I didn't recognize. It went back at least 3 months. She hadn't just cheated. She'd built a parallel schedule around it. She had a whole second rhythm to her life, one where I was nothing more than a roommate who paid the bills and didn't ask questions. I sat at the kitchen table, the tablet in front of me, and opened a fresh spreadsheet on my laptop. Just like I did at work. I listed the dates, message timestamps, phrases that matched her stories. I wasn't spiraling. I was documenting. Every new message that came in was another receipt. Another log. Another proof that my instincts weren't paranoia, they were pattern recognition. She had become a corrupted entry in a file I used to trust. And I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was just processing data. By the time she came home, smiling faintly, cheeks flushed from wine, I had already filed the truth away like I always did. Organized. Coded. Backed up. It wasn't personal anymore. It was procedural. I woke up early the next morning and went straight to the kitchen. No checking emails, no shower. Just coffee and a plan. French toast. Tara used to love it. Brioche, cinnamon, vanilla, the works. Back when things were normal, I'd make it for her on lazy Sunday mornings. Back when she'd sit at the counter in her robe, barefoot, laughing about donor mishaps and spilled wine at gala rehearsals. I hadn't made it in over a year. The smell filled the kitchen, warm and sweet. I even put out orange juice, her favorite mug, and a tiny vase with one of the flowers from her garden. It was all perfectly curated, domestic, familiar. She walked in around 7:30, still tying the sash on her robe. Her eyes caught the food first, then flicked to me. For a second, I saw confusion. Then something colder, calculation. "You made breakfast?" she asked, her voice light but cautious. "I figured you could use something real after all that donor wine," I said, flipping the last slice of toast onto a plate. She gave a small laugh and Saturday, this feels like a trap. I smiled gently. "Just breakfast." She took a bite, chewed slowly. "Watch me." "It's good," she said finally. "Glad to hear it." I poured us both coffee, sat across from her. I didn't touch my food. She noticed. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said. "Just tired. Work's been a mess." She nodded, relief washing over her face like she thought she'd dodged something. "Same here," she replied, eyes drifting away. "There's a lot coming up. Planning is overwhelming." "That right?" I said. I sipped my coffee. "You don't really talk about your events anymore." Her fork paused midair. "I do," she said quickly. "You just..." I cut in gently. "Not like you used to." She gave a little shrug. "It's all kind of the same now." That's when I saw her do it again, her phone, face down beside her hand like a shield. Close enough to reach. Not touching it, but guarding it. She used to toss it on the charger at night without a second thought. Now it was practically fused to her. Still, she was playing along. Eating. Smiling in a way that didn't touch her eyes. Trying to match the mood I'd set. I waited until she took her last bite. Until she wiped her lips and pushed her plate away. Then I leaned back in my chair, looked her right in the eye, and asked, "So, how's Jace these days?" It landed like a hammer. Tara froze. Her jaw stiffened slightly, her eyes darted to her phone, instinctively, and then back to me. "What?" she said, almost too quickly. I didn't blink. "You heard me." Silence stretched across the table like a chasm. Her lips parted, then closed. Her throat bobbed with a swallow. She wasn't good at this, not when she wasn't prepared. I didn't yell, didn't accuse. I just looked at her like she was a line item I'd already balanced. She finally spoke, but her voice cracked. "Marcus, what are you talking about?" And there it was, the beginning of the unraveling. I just sipped my coffee. "Never mind. Just thought I'd ask." Tara's face went pale. I'd seen that look before, not on her, but on clients. People caught in the middle of fraud investigations. People who thought they had more time before the audit reached their desk. "I don't know what you think you saw," she said finally. Her tone was low, controlled. "Practiced. But if you've been going through my phone, Marcus, that's the real problem here." There it was. The pivot. Classic. I tilted my head, watching her carefully. "You want to talk about ethics now?" "You invaded my privacy," she said, voice rising slightly. "That's not okay. I don't care what you think you found." "I didn't think I found anything," I cut in, still calm. "I did." She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Her shoulders squared, and she sat up straighter. "So what? You're spying on me now?" she snapped. "Is that what this is? You plant some software and think you're some kind of hero." I didn't flinch. I did what I do best. I followed a trail. "You left more than breadcrumbs." Her jaw clenched. "You're always like this. Cold. Distant. Do you even hear yourself? This is why we're here, Marcus. You've been gone for years." I nodded slowly. "Interesting theory." "It's not a theory," she said. "You bury yourself in numbers. You live in data. You don't see people." "Not really." "And yet," I said quietly, "I saw you." She looked away. "Just for a second. That was all I needed." "I saw you stop talking to me," I continued. "I saw the late nights. The change in your perfume. I saw you protecting your phone like it was state property." Tara stood up suddenly. "I don't have to sit here and be interrogated like some criminal." "You're not a criminal," I said, standing too. "Just a bad liar." She took a shaky breath and crossed her arms. "I made a mistake." "More than once," I replied. "Fine," she snapped. "Yes, I screwed up. But you think this is simple? You think you're just the victim? You've been emotionally vacant for years, Marcus." I needed something. I needed someone who wasn't your husband. I finished for her. She faltered. "I didn't make you cheat," I said. "But I did notice. Every change. Every cover story. Every deleted text that somehow still left a footprint." She shook her head slowly. "So what now? You throw me out? You want to play the victim and act like you're the one with all the power now?" I looked her dead in the eye. "No, I'm not playing anything. I'm done." She scoffed, trying to find some thread of leverage. "You can't just..." "You have until tonight to be out," I said. My voice is even as a ledger. "I'll be home at 8. If you're still here, I'll help carry your boxes." And with that, I walked past her, calm as ever. Because this wasn't a fight. It was a shutdown, and the system had already flagged the breach. I pulled into the driveway at exactly 8 p.m. The sky was dimming, but I could still see her car parked crooked, one tire nudged over the edge of the grass. That told me enough. Inside, the house was quiet. Too quiet. I stepped into the living room and saw the boxes, half-packed, clothes spilling from one, a lamp sticking out awkwardly from another like she'd shoved it in during a panic. She was sitting on the couch, arms folded, eyes red but dry now. I wasn't sure you'd come back, she said, voice barely above a whisper. I said 8, I replied, setting my keys on the table. She stood up. Her mouth open like she had a speech ready, something rehearsed, something desperate. But whatever she'd planned didn't come out the way she wanted. Her words stumbled before they landed. Marcus, don't do this. I didn't answer. I just looked at her. I messed up. I know that, she said. But don't throw everything away over a mistake. A mistake, I echoed, my tone neutral. Yes, she said, stepping closer. A mistake. One I wish I could take back. You don't understand what I've been going through. I kept still. Let her talk. You've been checked out for years. I tried, Marcus. I really did. But I felt invisible in this house. And that gave you permission? I asked. To start a second life with someone else? Her voice cracked. I didn't plan for any of it to happen. I needed to feel like someone saw me. And now you need what? I asked calmly. A second chance? An audit extension? She wiped her eyes. You're not even angry, and that's what's killing me. You're just cold. I nodded once. Because this isn't damage control, Tara. This is system shutdown. She stared at me. And for a moment, the real Tara, the one from before the late nights and secret texts, looked like she wanted to break through. But she didn't. That part of her was already gone. You really won't even talk about it? She asked. I already did. You just didn't hear it. I picked up a box near her feet. She flinched slightly, like the gesture hurt more than yelling ever could. You said 8, she whispered. You really meant it. I always mean it. She looked around the room like she was seeing it for the last time. The photos, the furniture, the things she hadn't packed. All of it suddenly out of reach. And I didn't gloat. I didn't smirk. I just held out the box. Let's finish this, I said. Because it wasn't revenge. It was execution of a deadline. And hers had run out. Tara had just finished taping the third box shut when she turned to me, eyes burning. The quiet defeat from earlier was gone, replaced with something sharper, anger, desperation. You're being cruel, she said. You're throwing away a marriage over what? One mistake? I tilted my head. You still think this is about just you and me? She blinked. What does that mean? I reached into the side drawer of my desk and pulled out an envelope. I walked over slowly and placed it on top of the box she'd just sealed. She stared at it. What is that? Read it. Her fingers hesitated, then pulled the flap open. She unfolded the single sheet inside, scanned the first line, and her breath caught. It was a printed note, addressed not to her, but to someone else. To Jace, it began. Thanks for entertaining my wife. Hope you can afford her. I've CC'd your wife in case she's curious where you've been. Marcus. Tara's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Her hands began to shake. She looked up at me, eyes wild. You didn't. I did. She stepped back like she'd been slapped. You had no right. I had every right, I said, my voice like steel. You made this public the moment you invited another man into our marriage. Tara's face collapsed. She clutched the edge of the couch like she might fall. You don't know what you've done. I know exactly what I've done, I replied. I pulled the mask off. Her breathing turned erratic. You don't understand. Jace's wife, she's not stable. She'll ruin everything. Not my problem, I said simply. This was always your choice. I just turned the lights on. She shook her head in disbelief. I can't believe you would stoop this low. No, I said, stepping closer. Lo was coming home to you smelling like someone else's cologne and still having the nerve to pretend you were tired from work. Lo was smiling in my face while planning weekend getaways with him behind my back. Tears filled her eyes, but I didn't flinch. I had nothing left to give her. Not pity. Not understanding. Definitely not protection. You want to talk about cruel? I asked, voice calm. You wrote a second story while I was still living in the first one. Her voice broke. This will destroy everything. You've exposed us. I nodded once. Exactly. She turned away from me, clutching the note, trying to catch her breath. But it was too late. The chain reaction had already begun. Her voice came again, but it was smaller now. You could have just let me go quietly. I gave you the chance to leave with dignity, I said. You chose to gamble. She looked up, mascara smudged, hands trembling. I thought you'd just stay quiet. You always keep things to yourself. Not anymore, I said. Because this wasn't about punishment. This was about documentation. About showing that there were consequences even in silence. Especially in silence. She folded the note and tucked it back into the envelope, like putting the genie back would fix everything. But she knew better. This wasn't a confrontation. It was a disclosure. and she'd just been served. Tara didn't say anything as she taped the last box shut. I watched from the doorway, arms crossed, leaning against the frame like a silent bouncer at the exit of a party no one wanted to admit was over. The anger had drained from her face. What was left behind wasn't remorse or rage, it was fatigue. Like she'd finally stopped trying to perform. She tried one more time. As she carried the box past me, she paused, balancing it on her hip. "You're going to regret this," she said, not looking at me. I didn't answer. She shifted the box and glanced at me sideways. "You think this makes you strong, don't you? But it just makes you cold." Still, I didn't move. "You think you've won something," she muttered. "But you haven't. You've just proven you're incapable of forgiveness." I finally spoke, my voice quiet. "No. I've proven I know when a system's too corrupted to save." That shut her up. She carried the last box out to her car. The door slammed harder than necessary, like punctuation on a sentence we both knew didn't need to be spoken. I waited until the taillights faded out of the driveway before I exhaled. Not relief. Not triumph. Just air. I walked back inside. The house was still. Not quiet like before, not that heavy, watch-your-step tension that had started creeping in months ago. This was a different quiet. A clean one. Like when you finally wipe a server, clear the cache, reinstall from scratch. I stood in the middle of the living room, scanning the space. Her coffee mug wasn't on the end table. Her charger wasn't coiled in the corner of the couch. Even her scent, perfume, lotion, whatever it was, already seemed to be fading from the air. It felt strange. Not sad. Not empty in the way people mean when they talk about a breakup. Just neutral. Like a hard reset. I walked over to the small entry table where she used to drop her bag every night. That little routine, the sound of keys, the sigh, the fake tiredness, it had once been comforting. Lately, it had felt like a lie on repeat. Now the space was blank. I sat down in the chair beside it and just stared for a while. Not at anything in particular. Just the absence of noise. And that was when I noticed it. The silence didn't hurt. It didn't ache. It didn't echo. It just was. And in that moment, I realized the chaos was gone. No more calculations. No more lies to reconcile. The system was finally clear. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I wasn't waiting for the next red flag. I was just still.